everyone. Hi. I'm Heather. Thanks for the introduction. So I make nature documentaries with my husband for our channel. It's the Bristol Nature Channel. We're on YouTube. I write the script, so I'm always on the search of a great story to tell. And the other day, I stumbled across an utterly bizarre story. It's a a legend from the Middle Ages, and it took me by surprise because I love my myths and legends, and I'd never heard of this one before. And it's quite a persistent one as well. So I thought where better to bring back to life this legend than here today with a great audience. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you the story of the vegetable lamb from Tartary. Now, to give you a bit of context, I know, it's a bit weird. So a bit of context, Tartary is now Russia and Mongolia. And to start this story, we need to head back to 1371, when a really famous traveller returned from his time abroad, and he wrote all his memoirs down in a book. And it became one of the most well-read books in the Middle Ages. So his name was Sir John Mandeville. You might have heard of him. He said, "Out of all the curiosities I saw in my travels, the most curious of them all is that of the vegetable lamb from Tartary, a plant that grows tall from the earth, bears melon-like fruit, which when mature burst open to reveal a living lamb." Wait for it. See what I mean? A lamb with cloven hooves, wool as white as snow, bones, blood, flesh. In all accounts, is it a real lamb? Now, Sir John Mandeville admitted he'd never actually seen this thing. And this is the same bloke that said that mermaids existed, and he'd also saw man-eating giants and massive dogs with human heads, so he's definitely the most reliable source of information. But what really cemented the belief in this amongst the people of the Middle Ages is the fact that all of Sir John's accounts came from well-read, well-educated and often religious men. So of course the vegetable lamb must exist. It must be something that grows in a far-off distant land called Tartary. So I don't know if it's Tartary or Tartary, I might mix it up, but anyway. So over the years, more and more accounts came about, each one telling a new story about this plant animal thing. And eventually the biology of the vegetable lamb became so detailed, it was hard to not believe in it. Apparently, the stem of the plant was so flexible, it allowed the lamb itself to bend over gracefully and graze on all the grass and herbs around it. But the moment it had eaten everything, then the poor lamb would die a slow death from starvation. So it's not the most biologically robust animal in the world, especially considering it's attached to the plant by its belly button. But anyway, the lamb itself was quite valuable. It had use to the local people. They used to use the wool to stuff their cats, and they wove it into their clothing, but they also ate the lamb. It was quite the delicacy. Its flesh tasted like crab meat, a little bit fishy, but the blood was divine. It was as sweet as honey. But there was a problem. The plant itself was so intelligent. It knew how valuable this lamb was that it held aloft, and so it would attack and kill anything that came near it. But the local people figured this out. So they stood a great distance away, and they shot arrows, that's me shooting arrows, at the plant. And if they made the slightest cut in the stem of the plant, then both plant and animal would die, and the lamb was theirs. So people just kept on believing in this until the 1500s, when the first ever specimen of a vegetable lamb was presented to the Royal Society by a man called Hans Sloane. Are you ready? It's quite exciting. The vegetable lamb from Tartary, everybody. You're probably thinking, what the hell is that? And then you're probably thinking, that's not a real lamb. And don't worry, Hans Sloane was with you. He didn't believe in the vegetable lamb. He said, look what I found. This here, I think this is the origin of that legend. Well, unfortunately, the first thing that made the Royal Society suspicious of Hans Sloane, Hans, and this thing here, is the fact that the vegetable lamb supposedly had wool as white as snow. This clearly has brown wool, and as well as that, this thing here is an upside-down, manipulated, woolly rhizome from a fern from China. It's that obvious. So, clearly this and Hans Sloane, they have nothing to do with the vegetable lamb, so poor Hans Sloane was just dismissed as a liar and a bit of a weirdo. Now, at this point in our history, our scientific advancement was progressing. We were starting to get curious, we were asking questions, and what happened to Hans really upset many people. Because every time someone brought reason to the table, another person brought an account of the vegetable lamb, a new one, that befogged all intellectual thought about what this could possibly be. Until 1868, when the vegetable lamb's greatest critic came forth. His name was Henry Lee, and he had one aim, and that was to demolish, destroy the legend completely. He said, the vegetable lamb, as we know it, cannot possibly exist. It's ridiculous. Instead, the origin of this legend comes from a plant of far greater significance to mankind than we could ever have possibly thought. And that is cotton, a plant that grows tall from the earth, bears fruit which burst open to reveal that akin to the soft white wool of a newborn lamb. And from that moment on, the legend was no more. We didn't even talk about it. I'd never even heard of it before. But elements of that story do still exist today in what we call cotton wool. We're the only ones that call it that, so I kind of like that fact. How amazing is that story? I bloody loved it when I found it. I thought it was awesome because it just shows kind of how we try to explain natural phenomena that were just too weird to understand. But it also shows how we perceive nature as almost having this magical power. It's that mystical belief in Mother Nature, who's kind of like the chef of the world, walking into her pantry, chucking in all these ingredients to create something from anything. And elements of that perception is still with us today in what we call cotton wool, and I think that's wonderful, personally. But anyway, thank you very much. That is the vegetable lamb from Tartary.